This is the pool we call the source, and it's the topmost spring here, which feeds down into what we call the guitar pool. And this is a pool that was built by the manager of the Rolling Stones quite some time ago. The spring is really unique in that it produces a lot of salt. And so it has a really high TDS, actually a surprisingly high TDS. Now normally I'm not really into drinking hard waters or waters with a high total dissolved solids, except this one's unique in that what it's producing is really salt, not calcium, magnesium, sulfur. If there was a lot of calcium in this water, we'd be seeing the calcium deposits along the rocks, which we don't. If there was a lot of magnesium, we'd be seeing that concretizing along the spring as well. If it was high in sulfur, we'd be smelling that, or iron, we'd see the rust deposits. But we don't. What we actually see here is the salt crystals everywhere. So this water is actually really ideal for drinking. And this is a spot I come to gather a lot of my water while I'm here. Measuring the water is pretty interesting. It's a lot higher, and its TDS was a lot higher than I thought it would be. I'm going to just run down a few TDS readings for you guys so you know what this is, more from the scientific perspective of maybe biologists and ecologists. Fresh water is considered any water under 1,000 parts per million. So mineral water is still a fresh water. Yeah? Does that make sense? Anything less than 1,000 is considered fresh water. Brackish water is 1,000 to 5,000 parts per million. Highly brackish water is 5,000 to 15,000 parts per million. Now this meter, I can't get up past, I can't get to 10,000 parts, right? Because it only goes up to 999 times 10. So that's as high as I can read. It kind of bottoms out around about 280 times 10. So about 2,800 parts per million of mostly salt. If we actually took this water and we boiled it down, we'd end up with salt crystals left over. So it's kind of almost like a blood transfusion. 2,800 parts as a frame of reference. Seawater's about 30,000 to 40,000 parts per million of mostly salt. So this is a lot less salty than seawater, but it's salty enough that you can taste it. So TDS meter, really cheap, really cool tool. And again, I'm not of the opinion that like you got to worry all the time about how much minerals in your water. I just think that the water that's your main water source needs to be a low TDS. That's important. But wherever I go, if like for instance, if I go traveling and I come to a spring and it's the only fresh water I can get and it's 600 parts per million, I'd rather drink that than anything out of a bottle, personally. About 110, almost 100. Oh, there goes 111 Fahrenheit. It'll be interesting to see how the temperature and TDS differs from source to source. Remember that all these sources are within a few hundred yards of each other, and yet somehow, though they come from the same aquifer, through the magic of hydrology, they come up with completely different waters. It's so what's happening is water's perfusing up and it's depositing that salt. And what's happening is as the sun evaporates the salt water to the surface, the water leaves, it picks crystals of sodium chloride up. And then at night it drops them down and it keeps doing this dance. And that's why they're building up into like little crystals. So that's the salt that I just gathered. It's just so humbling to come to a place where your needs rise right out of the ground. As we move down and show you the other sources, you'll see that they all have sort of a different energy. Here what's beautiful is the panorama. At night it's like the universe and the stars, and it's like this big open plain, and it's all white with salt. This is a place I've been coming for many years, and for me, it's probably the most transformative place that I know. But it's not a spring you can just show up at. It's not a spring you can just visit because it's not open to the public. And we've been holding retreats here for a long time. You can contact Rebecca and Joy at EpicedenHotSprings.com. If you want to come here and visit this place, I recommend that you do it because it really is one of the more transformational places on the planet. And if you're into spring jumping, like we are, this is a pretty essential place to visit. All these waters are different, and that's why if you drill down near a spring, you don't get spring water, you get well water. And I love that because it's like, well, like how's the water? Oh, how are you today? I'm well. It's like so mediocre, you know? It's like, well, that's well water. Well, it's okay, right? But it's not like spring. We're just coming down off the bluff now. There in the distance, you can see that salt flat where we gathered the salt up at the guitar at the source. We're going to come down this hill down to the oasis and have a look at some of the other sources there.